Hello. Maxine Hong Kingston once wisely stated, "In a time of destruction, create something." These words can be seen and echoed throughout history, like when President FDR implemented New Deal era legislation that brought the country back from the Great Depression, building from that time of economic destruction. It can be seen in fictional works like Octavia Butler's award-winning novel Parable of the Sower, where the protagonist builds a community based on her religious ideas that is built from the ashes of her old home. And lastly, looking at youth movements today that are looking to build from the economic destruction of the COVID-19 pandemic and the long-lasting racial and economic inequality that has plagued the United States while addressing the climate crisis. First, let's look at the historical example of an application of Maxine's quote, where FDR built from the destruction and created something. He created a economic plan and civilian conservation corps that really lifted the United States out of a time of great economic suffering and unemployment. Looking at the relationship between the quote about creating something from the destruction, this is pretty much fundamental to what FDR did. He took a time of suffering and ultimately sadness in the United States and built something from it. He created a new vision for what the US could look like in the future, a vision that is still largely here today. And that ties into my third example my third example of a current day application of this quote that I will be mentioning in just a little bit. Second, this quote is applicable to fictional works like Octavia Butler's novel Parable of the Sower, where the protagonist, Lauren Olamina, creates a community in a time of great destruction where there are fires and there is suffering created from the climate crisis that Octavia Butler wisely predicted almost 30 years ago. And there is a time where she has the protagonist, Lauren Olamina, has the opportunity to build this community, Earthseed, where she is able to create a tight-knit community from all of the destruction that had plagued her life and those she had met along the way, along her journey, their life. So again, this is a perfect example of how a person has taken this destruction that Maxine mentioned in the quote and have created something out of it. She created a community. She created a new religious organization that in the next book really took off and gained a huge following across the nation. And next, we're going to be talking about the application of this quote in the present day. Looking at the application of creating something from destruction is very applicable to what's going on right now, where youth activists are coming together to pressure the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, to stay true to his plan, Build Back Better, which again is very reminiscent of this quote where Maxine is advocating for the creation of something from a time of destruction. It's very common to equate what has happened with the COVID-19 pandemic with the destruction of life and the destruction of business, to see what is going to happen and how we're going to need to build from this. And youth movements like Sunrise Movement have been advocating for the creation of the Good Jobs for All plan, where good jobs would be created to build back from this time of unfortunate crisis from the unemployment that's currently happening, all while addressing a climate crisis, which is a looming method in which more destruction is going to occur. Looking at how intertwined employment and the climate crisis is, it's essential that we create something out of this time of crisis, like Maxine quoted in this quote. She really would. I think this is a perfect, again, application of this quote, because this is a great time to create something out of a time of destruction. Again, the advocating for by youth movements for good jobs for all, which is a plan that they're trying to get Joe Biden to implement, and also the creation of legislation to address the climate crisis while confronting economic and racial inequality, again, is something that is very reminiscent of this quote of creating something out of destruction, creating jobs and creating a future for all of us out of the destruction that we have witnessed. And again, this can be seen throughout all three of the examples I provided in building a society, a better society.